My name is Mary LaRonde. I'm a Temiagama Anishinaabe. I hail from Temagami, Ontario. I grew up on Lake Temagami, and I went to school in the town of Temagami, which is on the lake as well, but anyway, yeah, so I went to public school, elementary school in town of Temagami, and I went to high school in New Liskeard, Ontario. I was bused to New Liskeard. Yeah, so my own experience with racism is like really, you know, you just never quite fit in, right? You know that. I mean, there's sort of like this ruling class or whatever you want to call it, and they're all white people, and then like that's the standard, and you never really fit in. So it's I realized that my whole upbringing was kind of like on the outside looking in and trying to fit in. This sort of thing like where you just don't quite belong, you know, and also some sort of like expectation that, you know, well, this whole notion of not measuring up, it just seeps into you, because I mean, I made darn sure that I was like, you know, I did really well in school. It was a way of getting back, as well as being athletic. So you had to win at something, and there was some sort of, even then there was some sort of like, oh, she won, you know. It was something like I wasn't supposed to. I had that feeling. And then the other thing is that, you get teased. Kids would say bad things to you, call you names when they were angry with you, right? And you just are at a loss for words. Like, you don't know what to say. You know, you really don't have the wherewithal as a 5, 6, 7-year-old to say, well, you know, you're nothing but white trash or whatever. You don't, you know, that's not something that you know. Whereas, so it was very painful sometimes. I think this is one of the most, I think, profound stories that would describe my experience with racism as a young child. So I was on the school bus, and we were on the school bus, and they let me. And then something happened on the school bus, and I was being called names. Sometimes it would just happen, like people are trying to show off, so they, you know, the bullies, so they kind of pick on you or whatever. So, but I can't remember what it was, but I remember I was being taunted and for being an Anishinaabe, you know, being an Indian, as we all use that word at that time, and you know, it could be called names. Oh, you know, you dirty squaw, stuff like that. And I was 8. I remember being 8 years old because of the house we lived in. I remembered that. And where the bus let me off, I could walk across the lake, this little lake just outside of town. And my dog, and I was so livid. I was so angry and so hurt. And my dog comes running out to meet me on the lake. And I remember being really angry and thinking to myself how hurt I was, and thinking, okay, it'll go away. I won't feel like this tomorrow or later, because that's something you learn as a child. You know, when you get in a lot of trouble, then you kind of go, well, okay, tomorrow they'll love me again. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it just gets better the next day, like things resolve somehow. And I'm walking across the lake, and I'm sort of thinking, oh, it'll be okay, you know. And then I had this thought that I would be an Indian for the rest of my life. And I recall crying myself to sleep that night, that this was my lot in life. And I was as a young child, so that's very painful. Another incident was when I was in high school, my very first boyfriend. You know, I mean, we were like 14, 15 years old. You know, what do you do? You know, hold hands once in a while and talk and just hang out together. But so we went to a high school dance. I think we were 15. We went to a high school dance, and he came to me, and he was acting really weird. He said, "Oh, I need to talk to you." And I said, "What's the matter?" You know, and he said, "I can't hang around with you anymore." And he wouldn't even look at me. He said, "I can't hang around with you anymore." And I said, "Well, why? What did I do?" And he said, "The guys are calling me Johnny TP in the dressing room, and I can't take it. He was a hockey player, like with the juvenile A hockey team there up in New Liskeard, and so what do you do with that? Like, I know he liked me, and I liked him, but that was what it was, because I was Native. He was being teased, and he basically, wouldn't be my friend after that. Well, in education, for example, there's no positive messaging. From my experience, when I was in public school, I was taught to be ashamed to be an Indian, basically, because of the way that we were taught, that we had nothing, and we were sort of like backward and Stone Age and all that sort of stuff. And so unless the Europeans came here, we would just be totally like, at the mercy of the elements and in constant search of food, so that, and living a very uncomfortable life. So, but that's not true. In fact, I've learned so much more since then, and how actually beautiful and comfortable everybody was. And people lived a very long time compared to how long people lived in Europe. People were dying very young in Europe, and here we lived quite long lives. And I also knew a woman who lived in a wigwam when she was a young married woman. She said, "Oh, we were so happy, so comfortable." And when they brought the spruce boughs in to make like the fresh floor and the fresh bed, she said, "It just smelled so nice, and we were always so comfortable and always so warm." And this is a woman that I spent time with. She was my grandmother's friend. So, so we're just taught, we're given a real wrong bill of goods, a real rotten bill of goods on that aspect, and so that needs to change. I think it is, but not as quickly or as completely as it could. I don't think, because it could be changed in every subject. That there could be, and the things that we know, our knowledge, right, needs to be elevated to that same sort of caliber that people say, like people give to, British common law. Well, we have Indigenous law, and now there is a course in the University of Victoria where they're teaching Indigenous law as its own body of law in and of itself, that comes from Indigenous societies. It's not based on any other law. So we have all of those things. Well, Colin, I think people in Ontario really need to know how incredibly wonderful Indigenous people are. Because what they see is a result of their own actions and their own thinking. It's not real. They need to integrate a whole new message about the Indigenous people and how important we are to their existence then and now. That's what the people of Ontario need to know. They need to know that our languages, our knowledge is as much, and in some cases more, profound than theirs. And because they will be coming to us, as they already have, for medicine, for knowledge of the land. All of this is all what was taught to the people that came here to live here among us. They wouldn't have survived without us. And also what they need to know, I'll tell you one thing, this is a thing that Ontario needs to know, that they have what they have because of our dispossession, because of the genocidal and colonial policies of this province. That's why they have what they have. They need to come to terms with that and to understand that. And what I think Ontario needs to know is Ontarians need to know, they need to know how to say thank you. They need to say thank you to us for everything that they have, instead of saying that we're a drain on the taxpayers, etc. They should be looking at us and saying, my God, what wonderful people. After everything that's happened, they're still talking to us, so they're kind and loving, peaceful people, generous people, and strong, because we're still here, and after everything's said and done, we are still willing to live and work with the people who have come here. And they owe us everything, you know? So that's what people of Ontario need to know. Well, I think that it is changing in the sense that people may be a little bit more educated, in the sense that it's not okay to, actually, I don't know what to say, because I don't know. I really don't know.
Okay. You want to pass on that one?
Well, I really don't know if it's changing, you know? I mean, like...
I guess it's your opinion.
Yeah, you think it is, because there seem to be... I think it is changing, because people are not able to deny so much anymore, that that things aren't just as great as they thought, and that the history of where we are as Indigenous people is totally unnecessary, you know, for us to have been dispossessed, and also to have had you know, our knowledge and our languages and our ways basically attacked. You know, to what end? I mean, that's the knowledge that's basically saving us now, you know, really, all of us. Well, I think that the curriculum, first of all, every person in the province of Ontario has to go to school by the time they're 6 years old. So what they're taught is really important. And I know that before there was several years ago, there was a project in place to review and rewrite curricula. And that got shoved by the wayside with this particular government, as far as I know. And it was all of the work that they were doing got dismantled to a certain extent. So, so that's probably the biggest thing right there. And the other thing is that I think that the churches have a real obligation to start telling the truth, and because they have. So there we have education, religion. Those are probably the two areas where we could really make some changes, you know, for us to move to another level, as opposed to, you know, it's this notion of coexistence and sharing. You know, I think one of the things that can bring us together is looking after the land. That would be something I think that all of us can get behind, and so maybe, you know, we heal the land so we can heal one another, because I think we're all aware of the fact that we need air, water, food, you know, and things that we've all taken for granted for so long.